option. Now, federal politics has suddenly become a real contest, with the coalition closing in on Labor and Tony Abbott unveiling his very different plan to tackle climate change. Joining us now for the first time this year for our regular Political Friday update, our Federal Housing Minister Tanya Plibersek in Sydney, and from Canberra, Shadow Communications Minister Tony Smith. Good morning, welcome both of you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good morning.
Hi, Tony.
Minister, firstly,
good morning to your viewers.
Thank you. Minister, firstly to you, Tony Abbott really has come out of the boxes running as the opposition leader. He's tweaked up the poll results a little bit. Has he got you guys on the rails?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think people have been examining Tony Abbott's scheme for climate change this week, and they've found it very lacking. What they've found is a scheme that costs more than Labor's scheme, that does less, that actually sees carbon emissions increase by 13% instead of falling by 5%, and is completely unfunded. So it's going to come out of taxes, or it's going to come out of cuts in services.
He had a very good point, though. It took you 24 hours to assess his climate change policy, but we still haven't got the results of yours.
Well, that's not right. There is an enormous amount of information released about Labor's proposed carbon pollution reduction scheme, and at the bottom of the difference between the two schemes is, in one scheme, big polluters pay taxpayers, and in the other scheme, taxpayers pay big polluters.
Well, Tanya, if that's the case, you can tell us how much a family on $80,000 a year will pay in increased electricity.
Well, we know, Tony, that the costs will increase between 1.1 and 1.9%. We've been clear and upfront about that the whole time. The other thing we've been clear and upfront about is that families will be compensated. Almost every Australian household will receive compensation, and that compensation comes from big polluters who are paying to clean up some of the damage that they're doing to our environment.
Come on, Tanya. All week we've seen the Prime Minister refuse to reveal the cost to families of his great big new tax.
That's not true, Tony.
What Ron said at the start... No, come on, you've had a go. What Ron said at the start is dead right. The public welcome a practical, tangible policy like what we've put forward. Solar panels, improving our soils. It's a practical, costed policy that the public welcome. And all week you've been desperately trying to discredit it. And the figures you mentioned trying to discredit it contained in a note from one of your departments. It was so rushed, it was full of grammatical errors and incomplete sentences. I mean, that just said it all.
Well, Tony, the frontier economics that the Leader of the Opposition saying backs your scheme, helped design your scheme, they're backing away from it. They're not backing the scheme, they're backing away from it. We've said all along that costs will increase between 1.1 and 1.9%. Protecting our environment is not cost-free, but almost every Australian household will receive compensation to help with those costs, and that compensation comes from the big polluters.
Tony, I've got to ask you this question now. Your finance spokesman, Barnaby, Joyce, has had a few things to say in recent days. One of them on your plans to cut the public service, and the other to cut foreign aid. Now, they make big headlines, but you're left to explain this sort of thing.
Well, look, I mean, Tony Abbott explained clearly yesterday we haven't got any plans to alter our commitment to foreign aid. He made very clear
Well, where did Mr Joyce get his idea from then?
Well, look, Barnaby is authentic. He is a very good shadow finance spokesman, but occasionally, like all of us, Ron, will make a slip-up. And when you make a slip-up, of course, you admit that. Now, Kevin Rudd's making lots of slip-ups, and it's costing taxpayers lots of money. I mean, this week we've seen an Auditor General's report into Broadband that saw $30 million down the drain, $17 million of government money down the drain over a 17-month period, $1 million a month in incompetence.
Well,
so, the point I'd make, Ron, is the more the Labor Party personally vilify Barnaby Joyce, the more they confirm their desperation to conceal the effects of their great big new tax on Australian families.
Ron, I don't think it's fair to say that anyone's personally vilifying Barnaby. I think
we've seen it all week in the Parliament.
Lots of people think he's a very colourful character and very personable. The question here is whether he's a little out of his depth as finance shadow spokesperson. Finance is a very
Well, he is an accountant. He would have some idea, surely.
Well, I don't know. Mostly accountants can tell the difference between $1 billion and $1 trillion, and And Senator Joyce proved the other day at the press club that he didn't know the difference. I mean, it's probably not important that every person is able to talk billions and trillions in their day-to-day life, but if you're running the economy of this nation, it is quite important to be able to know the size of the economy. Nobody's saying that he's not a colourful character, that he's quite personable, but it is very, very important to know the detail of Australia's economy and have sensible solutions for the challenges that face us.
I've got a question that we might get a little bit of agreement from both of you. Now, the International Olympic authorities over in Vancouver are telling the Australians to rip down their huge big flag of the boxing kangaroo. Tony, what's your reaction to that?
Well, I've seen this morning on your news that they're refusing to do that, and I welcome that. And I hope with some traditional Aussie defiance there'll be a second flag up there within the next 24 hours.
Tanya, I trust you're coming out boxing too on this issue?
Oh, absolutely. I'm proud of our flag. I'm proud of the Eureka flag. I'm proud of our Aboriginal flag, and the boxing kangaroo, that's another favourite.
Well, Julia Gillard was about to jump down the screen and tell them really where to go, so I was all behind her on this one particular issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. What a silly thing to suggest to our athletes that they wouldn't show their national pride.
I love your outlook. Thank you very much to both of you. Welcome back to the new year. We'll see you next Friday, hopefully. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay, have a good weekend.
See you.
Thank you very much.